It will be good, but I'll wait for the pledge. I'll just do it.
Okay. In that case, Richie, we're ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 6th regular meeting of the Garrison Union Free School District. You're already ahead of me because you know the Pledge of Allegiance is how we kick off. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So, Sue leads off tonight. With our latest update on the 2019-20 school budget.
Yep. Welcome, everybody. Hello. Good evening. There really isn't much of a change right now with the budget, but we'll go over it anyway. A few slides. This is the same slide as we showed last time. It might be a slightly different by a few dollars, but we haven't changed anything. So we have general support going up $13,686. General support is, say, the business office, the superintendent's office, facilities, instruction going up $249,235, and that's all instruction. That includes Alex's office and all our teachers and aides and all the specials that are in that area as well. In transportation, we have going up $34,290, and debt and benefits going down actually almost $115,000. And I'll explain like I did last time. This is mainly due to TRS rates going down, ERS rates going down, and a decrease in health benefits. Not the cost to us per person, but how our people are using it, and how many people are in the plan.
Can you just,
Sure.
can you briefly go over that? I don't want to stop on this, but I'm just wondering how our health benefit structure is. Is there a menu of options that they get to select from? Or is it
No.
one plan, you either buy in or you buy out?
It is one plan. It's we belong to the Federal Northern Westchester BOCES Consortium.
Okay.
It's one of probably the better rates around. What's changed recently in that plan is we used to have strictly a family plan and a single plan, and this year it switched to a single plan, a two-person plan basically,
Okay.
an employee and one other, and then a family plan. So, and next year they're planning to do employee plus one that's a child, employee plus one that's a spouse, having it a 4-year plan.
Okay. That's all I
It
need.
does save us a little bit of money, because numbers are shifted, but we also pay for our retirees. And so they're on different levels as well, as far as their age goes. So they're on a tiered plan. Most of them are either single or spouse, plus one spouse. So so there's multi-layers of that. Right now we're paying for 6 different plans, but it's all within one plan. There is no choice. It's Aetna, and that's where we are right now. So where we're going to get the revenue right now, I'm saying that we're going to be using about $852,000 in our reserves, interest and other small income of $40,500, and New York State of $914,112.
That's a good number.
Well, the state has not finalized their budget. I heard this week that they're probably, normally their deadline is April 1st. They're not agreeing, the governor and the Senate's not agreeing, so I'm not sure we're going to have real numbers by April 1st. So this is the best number I have. It's the governor's proposal. Normally those aid numbers go up after the Senate adopts and all that stuff. So I actually am going to be up in Albany this weekend with my New York State ASBO group, meeting with legislators. I might have a better idea after Monday. So we'll see how that works out. That leaves us with preliminary tax levy of $9,284,183. And this you can barely see, so I think you have it in your things, but this is the tax levy cap calculation. I don't really have a better way to show it because there's a lot of numbers, but just to briefly explain, if you can actually see, the two numbers that really affect everything here are our growth factor, which is a 0.0042, and the allowable growth factor is 2%. It's max of 2%. The other things that are allowed to be deducted out are our capital expenditures, and ours this year are, I think it's 521. I can't see the number that great. 521,000, which is what we take out of the calculation, and we do this every year. I mean, last year we took out 541,000 of the capital expenditures. Our allowable growth that we can do is the 189. I'm sorry, I can't see it that well. 189,371, and that's a 2.8% increase, and that's what I reported to the state last week. We had to report the tax levy calculation, which looks like this.
2.8.
At 0.28, and that's our maximum allowable amount that we can raise our tax levy.
So I'm sorry, say that again. What's the maximum? What's our max this year? I can't see that. So.
It's 2.08, and it's
2.0.
189,371.32.
Sue, I know the numbers are right, but just for my own edification, on the capital expenditure line, which allows us to deduct the amount you referred to, 500,000 and some odd.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that $500,000 number
So
come from? Is that the paying down of our?
It's paying down of our debt.
It is, okay.
It's a combination of things. It's paying down of our debt and interest.
Right.
It's also any capital expenditures that we do. We normally do about 100,000.
That's okay. Good.
Over the summer and through the course of the year.
Mm-hmm.
This year we're spending a little bit more, but
Because of the boiler.
the boiler and other unplanned expenses.
Right.
But this calculation is really an estimate of what we're going to spend next year.
Got it.
So it's always really kind of an estimate. And then it's backing out any aid we get on that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the calculation. Be happy to send you my calculation that
No, like I
gets it
said,
into more numbers.
I
but
prefaced the question by saying I know the numbers are right. I
Yeah.
just want to know what they represent.
I know. I thought it would be a little bit bigger on the screen here, so I apologize it being so small, but I know you do have it in your packets as well. So, and this is a history of the tax levy increase. You can see, for the most part, we've been at 2%, except going back to 2016-17, where we were basically at zero. So there's our numbers now. This is a history of the tax rates in Phillipstown. And again, I don't have this current year because we're still in flux with that, but these are actual tax rates. You can see the cost each year, how much has gone up or gone down for Phillipstown, and this is Putt Valley. The difference in the amounts and the increases and decreases is Putt Valley is fully assessed, and Phillipstown has an equalization rate of just under 0.5%. So I always like to do a summary here for a 5-year. The difference between 2014-15 and last year's tax rates for Phillipstown was a total of $1.16 over 5 years. How that translates basically is that on average in Phillipstown, maybe the taxes for a $250,000 house might have gone up about $58. Putt Valley, the same type of thing, went up 69 cents over the course of 69 cents per thousand, if I didn't mention that before, 69 cents per thousand. So a house in Phillipstown that was valued at $250,000 50,000 would have had a cost increase of an average over the 5 years about $48 per year. Okay, this year when I looked on the full value tax rate, we're the second lowest of any school district in the 5-county area. Mechanico, again,
They
beat us out this year. It's one year that we're ahead, one year they're ahead, so they were slightly lower. And it's weird when you look on the website, Mechanical really, like their rates seem to be a year behind everybody else in Westchester. But all the rates, I don't know, they're like, it's 2015 or we're 2016, so I'm not sure if it's real true, but those are the numbers that I could get, latest values, and I got those off of the controller's office. So what happens if the voters vote the budget down? We would have to reduce the budget by the proposed increase in our levy, which is $189,338. That would require us to cut student materials and supplies and equipment, and we'd be limited on what we could do. We haven't not passed a budget here as long as I've been here, so I'm hoping that doesn't happen this year. And
Not like that. We
yeah,
tend to pass them with a wide margin. So.
yes, we do. And we have another budget our first budget workshop, because the first one got canceled, will be on Saturday morning. We'll basically do the same presentation, but we're hoping that we get to hear from the public. And then we have one here next week. I think that's Thursday at 9 o'clock, and the public is welcome to that. Board adopts on April 10th. We have a public hearing on May 8th, and the budget vote is May 21. Laura and I spoke today. We have plans to meet with Alex and Jim Mueller, CSE chair, and transportation and facilities, and try to really hone in a little bit more on the budget, and hopefully by the next, by the next board meeting, you'll have a clearer picture of where we're going to be. My only thoughts at this point is that we might decrease the budget a little bit, not increase it. I'm looking more at some student counts, where they're going in high school, and kind of hone in on that. We got most of it in, but not all of them. And it's really dependent a lot on CSE recommendations and where some placements are going. So a few things in the air. They are settling down a little bit, but I think we'll have a much better detail at the next board meeting.
When's our next meeting? Beth?
So 20?
20.
Yep, 2 weeks. Any questions?
Any questions? Anyone know? As always, Sue, thank you very much.
All right.
We know how much work goes into this and how long it takes to get to the goal line, so.
Okay,
appreciate it.
thank you.
Sue. Laura, you're going to devote superintendent's remarks to an update on the priority and goal-setting activities that are underway.
Yes.
Okay.
Just wanted to talk about our draft district priorities timeline. It is ambitious because we've added a few layers to it, but we started early and we hope to complete the process by May. We also want to just mention that this work, although intense and ambitious, is also coupled with lots of other work that's going on, such as our informal and formal observations, our CSE meetings, and our preparation for a capital project that we hope to bring before the public in early fall. So that being said, in November, December, I'll just walk you through our timeline. Since November, December, we developed and introduced a district priority plan to staff and board members, and it includes individual meetings with staff, so that's about 45 individual meetings, 2 high school visits, O'Neill and Haldane, meetings with our 8th grade students, 3 community forums, task force meetings, and board presentations. So in January, February, we completed about 20 individual meetings with staff members, and we visited the 2 high schools. We had 3 task force meetings and individual meetings with a number of superintendent with board members to sort of pick their brains as well. In March and April, we have 2 scheduled task force meetings to continue our work. We have a community mailing because we're going to invite community and parents to come in on 3 occasions to share their ideas, recommendations, commendations, ideas, and opinions. We have our district priority meetings with our 8th graders in small groups and it'll be sprinkled throughout the week of the 25th of March. And there'll be groups of 8th graders. We feel like they're transitioning to 9th grade high school, so they can sort of tell us how well we prepared them, or they think they're prepared, how their transition was from 5th to 6th grade, and all of the things that they experienced while they were here, whether they were here from kindergarten until 8th grade for 9 years, or if they just came to us recently. They're a wealth of information, and they're the boots on the ground, so I'm sure that we're going to have very lively, colorful conversations with them, and that's during March 25th. We're also going to work with student government like we did last time in facilitating conversations with grades K through 7. Last time they had small groups of representatives who share the ideas of the rest of the class. The community forums right now tentatively have been scheduled for Thursday, April 11th in the evening, and then on Thursday, April 25th, a session in the morning and a session in the evening. And then during all of that too, we would like to plan some board presentations, sort of where we've been and where we're going. So our hope, this is tentative too, and your feedback is always welcome, that on April 10th, Alex and I would do a district priority sort of review and process. Sort of what are the current, just a reminder of what the current priorities are and the growth we have made, and bringing in our literacy team, including words of advice. They did that last year, and they spoke about how they use Fountas and Pinnell and STAR and other data to inform their instructional choices around literacy. Then on April 23rd, we thought of bringing in technology and instructional technology, bringing in Nancy. She usually comes in anyway to talk about, give us an update about hardware, and teachers coming in with hopefully some students for all of these presentations to talk about their experience and the tools that they're using to enhance the classroom environment and experience for our kids. And then in May, we have 3 board meetings in there, but on May 8th, just an update on our social emotional learning piece. That's another district priority. And on May 29th, we hope to have a final board report of our findings and recommended district priorities for the next 3 years.
That facility's in there too, because that's one of the current priorities, right? Did you mention that?
I didn't, but would you like to add that? I know it is a priority, but I wasn't sure about
Well, it seems if you're going
to the capital.
That is true. We have discussed that at great length. But if you're going to do board updates on where we are with each of the current priorities, and there are only 4, it would seem maybe you could fit in facilities as
Sure.
well. You might not have to, it can be perhaps a little more streamlined than some of the others, but. I'm sorry,
So that's
but
the
I
plan.
interrupted.
And just a couple of other things. The boiler is now up and running. Thank you very much to Michael and Sue and the team. It was an emergency, and they faced the challenge in a cool, calm, and collected way and made it happen. We also have our new wireless throughout the building, so we are fully updated and up and running as well. All of this happened during that week off. There was a very busy building while folks were on the beach and skiing and doing whatever they do on winter break. And then just wanted to say that we have a Narcan training for community members and parents, and that is scheduled on April 23rd at 2:15 here in the school library. So anybody in the community, all parents are welcome to be trained in Narcan.
Great.
That's what I have.
Let's go back to the priorities and the priority setting process. The first question is, can you preview it, even tentatively, the kind of things you're hearing already? I mean, you've gathered a lot of input so far. Give us a sense of where you are and what you're hearing, if you wouldn't mind.
I think
If you
3,
can.
and Alex, please feel free to jump in. I feel that literacy is still a priority, both among the high school students and the staff that we've been working with, to continue to grow that and enhance it, and maybe add some other elements from the other district priorities, such as technology, and how can we use technology more in our literacy work. I've also heard communication on lots of levels, our district communication and how we're getting our good work out, as well as inviting feedback from the community, as well as what does it look like for teachers? What are the expectations for teachers and staff in their communication with parents and community? So sort of finding those places where we're all going to do it this way, but then there are other ways that you could do it because that's who you are as a teacher, or you want to communicate in other ways.
this will also be a good opportunity too, that a number of individuals we spoke with voiced that they feel like we made a tremendous amount of progress in certain priorities. For example, literacy, technology. However, now we're at a point too where we're going to determine based upon our feedback, because we've made such strides in some areas, does not mean that we are done with said priority. So we're trying to figure out the correct terminology of are we in a maintaining kind of phase, so to speak, or the next level of implementation, or to Laura's point too, some have said, we're doing a great job in isolation perhaps in terms of literacy and technology, but now the conversation is how do we effectively integrate and embed the two more seamlessly within our curriculum. So, and that's been generated from our staff conversation. So we're curious to see what, again, our students, it's nice that we have all this time to cover all of those different constituents and see their perspectives. So.
And one other piece with the literacy was, does it now expand to other content areas? Right now it's been purely literacy, so now does it spread into history and science and math, and what does that look like and sound like and feel like?
Other questions for Laura? All right, I don't have anything else. That's terrific. Alex, and principal's remarks. We need to segue from one right into the other. Go ahead.
All right, great. Good evening, everyone. So I will be relatively brief. The only thing I will be showing, so I will pull up momentarily, we did speak a little bit about one of our classrooms specifically, so I did want to first and foremost just say thank you to the support of GSEF, as well with our second grade sustainable classroom. So a nice video was put together, and you'll see, while her name is not on it, I'd like to recognize Ms. Wheeland. She was kind enough to give her time, and the job that she did in editing this piece looks absolutely wonderful, and most importantly, it really focuses first and foremost, as Ms. Giuliano and Ms. D'Alessio said, they have perhaps 15 seconds in the beginning, but then it really and truly is all about the students. So I'll let it speak for itself.
Hi, my name is Barbara D'Alessio, and I work at the Garrison School, and this is Marjorie.
Hi, I'm Marjorie Giuliano, and I'm a second grade teacher at the Garrison School. And we came up together with the idea for the green classroom.
Hi, my name is Oliver, and this is our classroom garden. This is a huge ribbon. Everything like a tree. I like the green classroom because you get to water the plants. I like the green classroom because it's really calming and it's really calming. Trying to be a plastic-free classroom so that we don't hurt animals in the ocean that are living in the ocean. We don't recycle plastic, could go in the ocean, and that would be bad for the environment and the animals in the environment. And our classroom does not want that to happen. My name is Emily, and I'm going to be telling you about the segment. So this is the water fountain. Dark outside, but it's still morning time, then we can light these up. It has like this rug where you can relax when you feel mad or sad. We went up to the forest first and we got like bark to put around the cardboard. One of the teachers glued the bark to the cardboard, so we didn't use any plastic. So then the animals wouldn't get hurt from the plastic.
My goal is that with students moving through the school, that they will carry the information and the learning lessons that they have in this classroom.
So the green classroom to me is really just a learning space for the children where they can know that they are connected to their environment. We wanted them to love the planet and feel feel that love in our classroom.
My name is Corey. Emily. Kayla. 1, 2, 3. Thank you,
So as I said down below, keys of motion, so again, Ms. Wheeland, and again, thank you, Ms. Tormey, you had shared that link, so we were able to share it via social media as well. And this also did prompt too, as wonderful as it is to hear our students speak on some of these things that are so, and them truly become environmental advocates, we've just had a lot of conversations of wouldn't it be nice to have them live and in person, perhaps some evenings. So Laura and I are going to work together to see if we can make that happen with some of these students and on some various works of our curriculum. So.
Terrific, thank you.
Could I get a link so that I could put it on the environmental education website?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll do that. Good idea.
Can I ask a question? Has that prompted, it's gotten a lot of attention, there was an article in the paper about it, it's a fabulous short film. Has it prompted inspiration from other teachers to adopt maybe not go all green, but similar policies in their classroom? And thinking about this grade, it's clearly been so meaningful for them, then going forward to the next grade, like how to take that knowledge so that it doesn't just live in that one classroom.
It's a great question, and I'm actually glad that you asked that because I did neglect to mention too that just yesterday we actually had, Ms. Giuliano had facilitated, we have a number of professional development workshops being done. So this one happened to be not necessarily focused on the themes of sustainability, but was just being in that space as professionals, as colleagues. So our teachers are now having an opportunity to step into, because we have such limited time during the day. So yes, I think that it is just in a very organic way, really kind of bringing attention to some of the things we can do within our classrooms, and then that is lending itself to broader conversation. So that's the hope. It looks like it is taking steps. So.
Other questions for Alex on green classroom or anything else? Did you have other things to cover, or was that's
Kept it brief.
Got it. No, absolutely. So, any other questions or comments, Alex? If not, thanks very much, Alex. That's
Thank you.
terrific. You have immersively brief consent agenda. Okay, it's resolved, the Board of Education of Garrison Union Free School District approves the consent agenda items B through F as presented. The first is the minutes of the board meeting, sorry. Approve the minutes of the January 24th and February 5th, 2019 board minutes. They're both in your package. There are also CSE recommendations, again, in your package to be approved. Item D, approve a contract for health and welfare services with the Somers Central School District for 2018-19 school year for 2 students, total cost of $2,386.12. Item E is a similar contract for health and welfare services with the Arlington Central School District for 2018-19 for 5 students at a total cost of $4,021.90. That contract is also in your package. Health and welfare services also for the Harrison Central School District for 2018-19 for 1 student at a cost of $1,104.33. And that's it.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments, Laura? I don't think there's anything that needs to be explained there. If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions, no nays. And now, a subject familiar to and near and dear to all of our hearts. Laura has a recommendation. Laura and Sue have recommendations for us, I believe, with respect to substitute compensation.
Yes.
You have the floor, Laura.
It has been an ongoing conversation among board members here, as well as districts across the state, of how to attract more certified teachers to be our substitutes in district. And some ideas generated where it was increase the funding. Right now, the daily rate for a substitute is $85, and to make it at least competitive with our neighboring districts for certified teachers, we are recommending raising it from $85 to $100 with the hope that that will help increase our numbers of certified teachers as substitutes. Right now we have 5 certified teachers. 3 of them are retirees from the school district. And 2 of them right now are two of them, the other two are on long-term leave, so they're not available to us right now.
Meaning they're doing long-term leave somewhere else?
Elsewhere, yes. And which also brings a point up with our policy for long-term substitutes. Right now, it's a 3-tiered process, and it starts out with $85 for the first 20 days, then goes to $150 for the next 20 days, and then the 41st day and up, it is 1/200th of a BA Step 1, which is about $280, Sue?
Almost 290, yeah.
And what we've done twice this year is override that, because the $85 daily rate is not competitive with the rest of the districts. So we have increased to attract teachers, qualified teachers, certified teachers for our long-term positions. So we recommend raising the daily rate to 100, but also reviewing and revising the current policy to make it more competitive as well.
This would be a no situation, in regardless of when a person is hired for, or a long-term substitute position converts from substitute to long-term substitute. In other words, we have situations now, as I understand it, where what appears to be a short-term substitute commitment, which would be now at the $100 a day, becomes a long-term. And the idea would be, irrespective of that, if you're hiring someone as a long-term substitute teacher, it would be at a higher rate than we're paying now. Is that, substantially higher rate?
Right, the daily would be higher for certified teachers, substitutes, and then I think we really just have to see what other, there are lots of templates or practices across districts. So some have 3-tiered like we do, some will have the $100 rate, but after a certain time we'll go to the $150 rate and then do a retro to bring it to a higher rate for a long-term sub. So there are lots of different ways we could do it. I think we just need to figure out what will work for us and will attract those teachers we need to be in front of our students. It could be as simple as a flat rate for the whole time that they're here, or it could vary based on time here and retro, based on expertise and performance.
Are we going to be able to look at, after a certain trial period, at all things are fine with moving our day rate to $100, but we should be able to look at, after a certain period of time, whether that has allowed us to increase the number of certified teachers we're bringing in on a regular basis as opposed to non-certified. And if we haven't seen a meaningful change, then that's one way of knowing that the base rate is not the issue for us, and there are other ways to go at this. So is it the plan that we're going to do some tracking of that between now and, say, the end of the year that'll give us 3 months worth of data?
Yes, I mean we're in March. We'll post it. We'll give it some new life. The posting, maybe put it in the paper with our rate and sort of see if that will attract more people. But absolutely, it's just to see if there's an increase, and then we can say, okay, the increase in funding was really what's going to work, or not, and then we have to figure out other ways to get folks into the district. But please know, like, throughout the state, districts are having a hard time recruiting substitutes, whether they're uncertified or certified. So we're all struggling and trying to figure out what to do.
Is anybody proposing theories as to why that is?
Some is that the teacher pool is decreasing. It's not so saturated as it has been in the past.
Low unemployment rate.
Yeah, unemployment's at below 4%, so.
Yeah, but when I can't come up with the letters. When that first came out, there was quite a problem.
What are we talking
Can't
about?
put AARP. It's not AARP.
No, APPR.
Thank you. There was a whole lot of discussion when that came out, that there was a lot of students that were deciding not to go into teaching because of that. And that that it would show up in years, and maybe that could be part of it too.
There's also been a mass exodus because of the APPR too, so maybe that's so many retirees.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Any other questions or comments, issues with this decision, the recommendation to move to $100 a day rate for substitutes?
What qualifies for substitute worthy material? In other words, what opportunity, when do you get a substitute? It's obviously illness. When do you need a substitute?
Yep, illness, sick, family sick, long-term substitutes, professional development, and other than sick, there's religious observations.
Deaths.
Court obligations, personal days. I have just, Sue did a nice analysis of sort of percentages of substitutes last year.
Yeah.
So we had spent about, correct me if I'm wrong on any of my numbers, but about $96,211 for our substitute expenditures. And 40% of our expenditures went to sick and family sick, and that includes teachers, teacher aides, and our nurse.
Okay.
16% went to 2 long-term substitutes, and 43% went to professional development and other days than sick, which is the court, the personal, and religious.
If there's also, I guess, if you're a member of the union, you have, or if you're do you have union duties or union training or things like that? Do they get leave for that? If they have to go somewhere.
Union duties.
That's usually after hours, right?
Is that after hours?
We don't, yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I was just curious, like,
Yeah.
what is the whole expanse there? It's a lot of different things, right?
Yeah, there's a lot.
It could be
Yeah.
dangerous, definitely.
Sure, sure.
We felt like these were sort of the broad strokes,
Mhm.
the bigger buckets that we could identify.
Personal or family illness and professional development.
Yeah, and then 16 as
And,
well.
Yeah.
and, and long, and the 2 long terms.
yeah, by far, I think by far, just from last year, if you just take last year, it's been professional development is the bulk, and long-term, some long-term leaves for whatever reason, so that's.
And every year is different. So
Yeah.
in 2016-17, we had 7 long-term substitutes because of illness, maternity leave. So it's different every year.
Mhm.
Do you do a write-up of any kind of performance review, especially of substitutes, especially long-term subs? Is there
We're working on that, sort of how to evaluate, how do we include teacher feedback and our own evaluations to inform the staff member, the long-term sub, so that we can give them feedback for it to improve their performance, or not to ask them back, Yes. So we don't have a formal right now, but that is in discussion.
So for instance, you had Mary Fopiano teaching most of the semester in ELA last year, this past year. Did you do any review of the work that she did? Did you assess the value of what she was doing?
We were doing classroom visits.
And what was your sense of that?
If you're asking what was the...
I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Reframe the
I just
question,
want
if
to
you
know
would.
what kind of retrospective analysis did you do for somebody like that who was in a long-term position as a
We do observations, we have conversations. We connected her to Words of Advice because she was teaching literacy. So they were coaching, Melanie was coaching her on the units of study across grades.
Okay.
And then we're spent 43% for professional development, so that means internal or external or both? Is that sending people out of the building, in the building? Is that?
The bulk of it is actually in the building.
Okay.
From, I think the numbers I gave you earlier, it was like 90 days we're out of the building.
I guess the thing I'm wondering, Laura, I guess is then when people, I'm not sure how this works mechanically. You put out a call for professional development opportunity and people sign up. Is that what happens?
Well, it's for out of like if they're going to a BOCES.
Yeah,
Well, it depends. Like we have a group of the PBIS team, so there are probably 5 or 6 folks, and there are multiple meetings at BOCES training for that. So we may have 6 people out of the building 5 times per year for training and to implement.
And of course they're approved to do all that. And,
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then is there an accounting of, let us say, someone wants to do professional development, PBIS, and then there's another professional development 2 weeks later doing something else. Is there a sense of, hey, I really want you, I'm wondering how do we make sure that the teachers and the students are having enough cohesion and we don't have you know, people leaving the classroom every other day kind of thing. See what I'm saying?
Yes, and actually.
I'm wondering about how they're meted out, and, I mean, we want to encourage our students, or our teachers to be supported as possible in professional development. At the same time, be mindful of the impact upon classroom cohesion. That's what I'm concerned. That's my concern. I'm sure that you're concerned as well. I'm wondering if there's a mechanism to say, love to, but maybe this is not the best time, or how about 3 weeks from now? I think, this, you know.
Yep, those conversations absolutely happen. Also, teachers, they struggle with being out of the classroom. So they're like, oh, we have a PBIS, I have a TCIS, and I have a mindfulness. Okay, you know what? I'm going to wait for the mindfulness for the spring and do this and finish this course. So they too want to make sure that there's cohesion and
Someone who's missed a few snow
sometimes
days,
it's harder
drives
to
you
be harder
nuts.
to be out of the class than to be in the class because you want to make sure that the kids are prepared and set up for success.
And we've had conversations too, just there's always more to your point that we can, I think from, and now having seen more of the year in completion to see how everything aligns and is more cohesive, but as we said, a portion of this are unpredictable, whether it's personal, you know, sick leave, so we may plan accordingly, and some of our teachers, as Laura said too, will either pull back because they place our students first, that they will pull away from a professional development commitment in order to not break that consistency for our students. And I think the other layer too is having, because I've been part of districts that encourage out of building training, so that layer of having many of those trainings in-house just helps to have access, so if there are any kind of immediate concerns that they're at least on site, which is good. So, but there's work to be done.
Yeah, we're looking at the schedules and the calendars a little bit more too, just see if we can sort of alleviate that. But we have really done a lot of professional development to support the district priorities, specifically around the social emotional. So I think we now have 38 staff members trained in therapeutic crisis intervention. So we really had it's a lot of front loading, but then there are just refreshers every other year. So and those trainings are 4 days. So you're doing 4 days times 38 people, that's a lot of subs. And then words of advice, they come about 30 times a year, and they work with small groups of teachers that could range from, I think, 3 to 5 people. So all of those need coverages so that teachers have the skills that we want them to have to teach our kids. So we hope that it sort of levels out because we've done so much front loading for those district priorities.
Other questions on this? So one half of the puzzle, at least, with respect to trying to get as many certified teachers as we can into the substitute pool is being addressed tonight on the basis of the recommendation to move upwards day rate to $100. We need a resolution to approve that, so I'm going to resolve the Board of Education, the Garrison Union Free School District establishes a daily pay rate of $100 for substitute teachers who hold New York State teaching certification effective March 11, 2019. I need a so moved.
So moved.
Second, then we still have time for a question. The way this is written, are we paying non-certified substitutes $85?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to be clear. Okay, that's my only question. All those in favor?
Aye.
No abstentions, no nays. Well done.
Can we make sure that it gets on the calendar at the end of the school year to hear back of what if this made any difference?
Well, this is.
Yeah,
this is
I'll
getting-
make it a point to ask because, yeah, you want
It's interesting to follow the numbers and see if that.
No, this is gonna be starting right away though, right?
effective immediately. So at the end of the year, we see that the number of certified substitutes that we brought into the district is markedly different and better than it has been so far this year. Then you can say, okay, fine, that was the independent variable that needed to be addressed. If it hasn't changed, I'm not saying we would go back to the $85 a day, but we would look at other solutions to this board desire to have as many certified teachers as substitutes as opposed to non-certified as possible. So, With that, we have one other action item, right, Beth? Oh,
Putnam County.
yeah, Putnam County real taxes. Sue can explain this as soon as I read it. Resolve the Board of Education, the Garrison Union Free School District approves the contract with Putnam County for real property tax service for 2019-20, and be it further resolved that the superintendent is authorized to sign said contract.
So moved.
Give me a second, and I'll just Sue remind us, what did we do this every year, but I just
Well,
need to be
Putnam County
reminded.
actually does print our tax rolls and our tax bills, so that's basically what this is for, the cost of all that. They also, collect our second half of taxes, for the people that pay second half, and they make us whole. So
So, okay, that's
that's what this is all about.
Got it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, no nays. Well done. Public comment. Ms. Tormey? Anything?
Hi, I'm Sarah Tormey, president of GSAF. Thank you for sharing the video that Ms. Whelan
Yeah,
put
that
together.
was
We have two more coming. One will focus on the music grants that have supported purchases of guitars, ukuleles that are now being used in the curriculum, and the hand drums that were added this year. And then a third one on the Makerspace Little Bits projects that the curriculum that Mr. Young does in his art room. So Ms. Whelan is putting those together now. They'll highlight other grades and other students as well. So we just started with this one because it was, she has a son in that grade, it was easy to put together. But all of this is possible with the dollars we raise at GSEF events like the Spring Thaw. So I hope you all will join us on April 6th. Everyone in the community, April 6th at Bear Mountain. Tickets are on sale at gsef.net. And that's it. Oh, and one thing, just as a parent who's had two students almost go through Miss Giuliano's classroom. I had one last year and this year. What you don't see in the newspaper articles and the video is how much the responsive classroom has helped. And while yes, there's great messaging about getting rid of plastics, so much of it is how she teaches and how she speaks to the children that they're probably not even aware of. But things like the Zen Den, which is a thing that they talk about a lot in their class, a place where they can go when they're upset, is a big deal. So I think when you're looking to share beyond her classroom, some of those elements are really the foundation for what she's done that allowed her to then implement the Green Classroom.
I'll respond to that really quickly to say that during Teacher Switch Day that happened a couple weeks ago, my 8th grader had Miss Giuliano, the 2nd grade teacher, come and teach her 8th grade science class, and I heard that and went, wow, how's that going to be? And my 8th grader came home going, I wish I had had Miss Giuliano, and she didn't teach she brought her 2nd grade tools with her and taught the 8th graders not to teach down to them, but she taught them the hand signals and did morning meeting and took the 8th grade classroom all the way through the day the way she would with the 2nd grade. And the 8th graders really responded and were really empowered by it and really inspired by her. So she's a formidable force and a powerful person here as a teacher and really inspiring.
Yeah, my favorite story was on a field trip I did with Jameson's class last year where kids are running around, we're at the Constitution March, and she goes, okay everyone, go to the seat where you'll be most successful. Everybody stops, thinks, and goes to where they can sit quietly without any other, and then they sit and pay attention. So it's really her use of language that really is inspiring, and I'm sure translates to older students as well. And the 2nd grade had Mr. Keegan and loved it too. I'm not sure she really understands what she was talking about. It was exciting.
Just one quick question on the Thaw.
Yeah.
Buy tickets online at gsef.org.
Yes.
Is this one of these things where buy it online or pay more at the door?
Yes,
Yes.
the price is $100. Sorry, I'm so much more interested in the grant sometimes than actual selling tickets, but $100 until the 24th of March. You can send us a check. You can give me the check, put it in our box here, mail it to our P.O. box, or go online and use PayPal. And then at the door it'll be $115. And it'll be really fun this year. We have a great auction. So many of the community has come together to donate, which we really appreciate. The dancing, all kinds of
Looking
fun
forward to
stuff.
checking out the Bear Mountain Inn. I haven't been in it, so.
They've been so kind to us and very supportive. I'm really excited to have us over there. And the supportive school event. They could have made so much more money if they'd held this date for a wedding, and they instead gave it to us. So we really appreciate that.
Sarah, thank you for what you're doing.
Sorry, Nicole. You're very welcome.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, you gotta do it by the 24th.
Oh, yeah, get your tickets.
Gotta get the discount.
Get in,
That's right.
Board member comment, allow me the privilege of just starting to say, this is for the board's benefit, but for anybody who's interested in watching as well. It is that time to do superintendent evaluation. I just want to briefly step through the process. The New York State Council of School Superintendents offers a widely used and comprehensive rubric for superintendent evaluations that covers both progress against established or defined goals, as well as that set of administrative skills that successful superintendents need to run a district. And I'm recommending that be the rubric that we use for this year's evaluation. Laura has already completed her self-evaluation portion of that evaluation format. And it is now, and she has shared that with me. It's now up to me to write a draft, and I emphasize draft, board response or evaluation using, again, that same rubric. It's my expectation and hope to have that done presently, and by that I mean in the next few days. What I would do thereafter is give each of you copies of both Laura's self-evaluation and my draft of a board evaluation, and ask each of you to reflect on it, add comments, amend, correct, extend, share your views on the questions. The one of the beauties of this NISCUS rubric is it is it's very user-friendly and allows for a lot of input, but also it anticipates a lot of questions. So I'll circulate that to each of you, and shortly thereafter, I hope we would schedule an executive session for the sole purpose of reviewing each of our inputs, our reaction to the draft, corrections, annotations, etc., with the idea that we would then come up with a consensus evaluation, and to close the process out, I would review it with Laura, and we would basically file it. So that's where we are. My goal, I should say, by the way, barring any other surprises or distractions, would be to have that done by mid-April. So I just wanted everybody to know that that's sort of in motion. Some of you have asked, and appropriately so. So that's where that stands.
I have something else.
Yeah, sure.
So, a few days ago, we had a visit in our house from an 8th grader at Haldane, wearing a lovely medal around her neck, which she had won in an interscholastic debate event at Bard College, along with her team at Haldane, which I think did very well in the competition. Also there was a team from Manitou. So either 2 out of 3 schools in Phillipstown have a debate team. And as you know, we've been discussing this for years. And I checked some of the literature about the importance of debate as a way of encouraging critical thinking, something that's extremely appropriate for middle school kids. And I guess I would, it is not the case that there's no debate here at the school. Chris Caliendo has taken it upon himself to do a debate program in his social studies class. That's not the same as, obviously, an interscholastic debate team. And I guess finally, having discussed this with you privately on a number of occasions, I want to raise to you and your associate, Alex, if you could address this question of why we don't have a debate team here in the middle school at Haldane. And do you think it's maybe you have other evidence or feeling that it's not worth having, or it's something that would be I don't know, for whatever reason. But I would like to have that addressed by the leadership of the school. Why don't we have a debate team here at Garrison?
So, I know we've had this conversation, and I know there's sprinkles of debate throughout the grades. I know Jennifer Pitts also does some debate, Chris Callion does debate. It would have to be a whole school, whole district conversation. I agree, I think debate is great. I've seen it in full force and very successful. But I think we just have to have it as a conversation. I'm not opposed to it.
We've had the
I don't-
conversation.
But we also work on a lot of, environmental, we're working on social emotional literacy. It is embedded in the literacy curriculum, because it's communication, collaboration, providing evidence. So,
I guess the question is it a stipended position, debate coach? Can we stipend the position to incentivize participation? If we have a debate coach, we can stipend.
If I may too, I know we've discussed too a lot. Laura and I have had conversations about the district priority task force and just also the district priority process. So the parent, or the community forums that we mentioned too, that I think a couple of things, that's hopefully an opportunity for our community members to just, whether it's debate, whether it's Spanish, some of the other things that we brought up along the way, so that we can have that conversation and from there determine our focus collectively. So that might be a good.
If I might, and it'd be good that you would listen for it. But here's my sense of having a conversation, soliciting community input on the question. If you ask the question, would it be nice if we had a debate club? The answer is going to be uniformly yes. No one's going to say it's a bad idea. We don't think we should have debate. So the answer is, it's like asking the question about additional language instruction. The answer is always going to be yes for something like that. As a practical matter, if you want to have a debate club, it seems to me, one, you need a faculty member who wants to devote the time, the energy, and also receive a stipend for it. You have to have some demonstration that there is, in fact, sustainable interest over time. That you've got enough kids, a critical mass of kids, to actually form a meaningful group. Put those two things together, then you begin to have a debate club. So I'm not, as I say, I'm all for taking community input on these kind of questions. But it does seem to me that there's almost no way you can frame the question and not get the answer, sure, it'd be a good thing.
Right.
So,
Another thing.
It's like me against the air.
Right.
You know. Are you going to volunteer to be the debate coach?
well,
I don't work here, so.
You don't have to.
well, that's why you said volunteer. No one is going to, just so you know, my expectation, no one who works here, let me put that differently, it is unlikely that anybody who works here is going to volunteer to do this. It would have to be a stipended position. My expectation is that the stipend would be minimal, along the lines of what you pay a
Maybe
coach.
find out how we do it at Haldane, at Manitou. How much of a stipend is required to induce a teacher to take it on?
That would be a matter of public record which anybody could examine. So, David, you have a passion for this clearly. You want to, by all means.
I can find out.
So I'll add
Oh, sorry,
something. The great thing to do is to have a speech program, because kids can compete in debate, but they can also compete in extemporaneous speech, and it's tied to theater. And so kids do dramatic readings. There are several different competitive divisions within speech, and it could be tied to drama here too. So,
Poetry out loud competition when they have to recite
so
poems.
There's a lot. But to build on what you said about critical thinking, the key thing about debate that's so great for critical thinking is you have to take on something that you don't believe in,
Right.
and you have to learn about it.
Right.
That's right.
And then that expands your mind.
Gets you out of tribal thinking. There's actually studies in Yale about this going on right now, about why people will go against what is rational or what they think is the best argument. And has a lot to deal with how they affiliate themselves. Rather than, let's say, looking at the evidence. Debate forces you to step out of your affinity towards something that's
Your
slightly
comfort
different than you and represent an argument.
Yeah.
And believe me, at the college level, you know this, it's a scarce resource, critical thinking. So.
Other board member comment, sorry.
No, I think he covered everything that I was going to raise. I guess I did have a question about the.
Okay, what does that conversation sound like? And that gets to your, what are the controlling questions?
Okay, so like when you're setting a priority, right, you can say, well, what's a priority? Right now, my priority is, to pay off my debt, like I'm setting the priority based upon what I see as a perceived need, but how is that determined? Is it determined by my experience with Classroom A? Is that determined by, do we build consensus of what we think a need is? In other words, how do we plan? How do we, what questions, how is that frame built so that we can say this is a priority? Do we do it based upon what we want the attributes we want our graduates to be? Do we do it based upon state mandates? Do we do it based upon what jobs we want them to have? How do we determine, exactly what it is? How do we, what are the controlling questions that make us say this is a priority? Happy kids, sad kids, just what I'm wondering, like, how do you say, you know what, that's a priority? And that's a question you don't have to answer. It might be a question you want to sit on. I'm raising a question. I'm not looking for an answer. If I wanted an answer, I'd say, tell me.
It's a very good question, and I don't think you necessarily need to answer it now.
No.
But when you come to us with the final outputs and say these are the priorities, right, then the question's going to be, because it was the last time, and it was a good question, and I'm not sure it was answered well enough. So okay. Why? Why these priorities to the exclusion of something else? What are you trying to accomplish with this? What was, as Jane would say, what were the framing questions that led you to get to these are our 4 or 5 priorities, or these are why we're staying with the ones we already have, something like that. So it's...
Right, if you're looking at the ceiling and it's leaking, clearly that's a priority, right? You say the facility's a priority. But when it comes to education and, academic pursuits and social emotional well-being, all of which are very wonderful things. How are we determining? One of the reasons that we assigned literacy as a priority, I think, when we started this, was as a response to what everyone in the school and what we perceived as maybe unsatisfactory performances on state tests. So we said, hey, that's got to be a priority, right?
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily the best way to go about planning. Looking at deficiencies, looking at, X teacher, X student is unhappy, so that's going to be a priority. So I think priorities are built around goals and ambitions for the district. So, but I mean, this is a general question about how you're going about doing the business of priority setting. Everybody, there's certain things that people assume that they operate on as a question, like, okay, this is what I think is a priority because I want my students to know X. Well, why? That's a question. Like I could ask them, like, why is that a priority for you? Well, why is debate a priority for you, right? So if we, at that basis, this is the, what I'm wondering is, how is the people going about setting their priorities determining what the priority is? And it's like a meta question, but it's an important one.
But that's also
it helps steer the minds of everybody on board, I think.
But that's also his priority. It's not necessarily the rest of the board's priority. So it can't. Well, no, and I'm not.
Everything that's David's priority is my priority.
No, I know. But I think that happens in a lot of these cases where
exactly.
And I think that's got to be up to the administration to figure out which things they come up for the priority.
Well, just to be clear, Diana, but the priority really is to be able to think critically, speak clearly, and write clearly.
Which is a great...
Write clearly, speak clearly, think critically. Right. Debate is a tool that would enhance those.
Nobody cares really about debate. They care about the outcomes, right? Yeah. It's not like who cares. Like if you could achieve that through other means, you'd be happy with that.
Absolutely. Right. But that's a proven. I mean, there's data on this, right? I mean, it's a proven method. Right. But I was going to say that this idea of going to the kids, I don't think there's been a whole lot of conferring with the students here over the past couple of years, but You said that you're gonna be having meetings with kids. I think that, I think of the kids as consumers. I mean, and as they can be very clever, smart, they can tell you what's not going well. They can tell you about classes that are giving them zero value or very little value. Well, they can do that. You should listen to that, right? I mean, you should consult kids for that kind of information. But I don't think that they're the ones to set the priorities. That's my point.
Yeah.
Right? I think the priorities have to come from the leaders of the school.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will say this though, and we go back to the last time we went through this exercise. There was a schema, if you will, that was presented. That was sort of the if we do this, then these are the outcomes, and that was the way these were described. And I guess it was satisfactory to a point. But what I think it lacked, and this is a matter of personal preference or reaction to what we saw, was that what it lacked was a clear statement of the current state of affairs. It was, if existed detached from what we observed, you observed, or the administration observed through all of your inputs, is what the current state of affairs were. Now, in the case of literacy, there was an anchor in that we had seen some rather disappointing test results, and not just one, but a series of declines. So that had an anchor, but some of the others didn't, and they weren't necessarily grounded in where we were starting from.
I think I'm sorry.
That's what I'd like to. When we next discuss our priorities, that we include an assessment of our current state with an eye towards why we're identifying these priorities to improve upon, to expand on, or something, but not just on a sort of an untethered, if then it would be nice too kind of thing.
Right, because
That's
I think there's a
personal
there's a
preference
lot of
for
programs,
analytical.
yeah, that have come up. We've talked about the baccalaureate program, we've talked about linguistics, so there's different, and that's what I was trying to say, not pick on you for that one, but everybody could have, everybody could have different things, and maybe I want the baccalaureate, and you want, you could have different things, you want the green classroom, I mean, but the administration can't do everything, and we can't pay for everything, so they have to figure out which things are worth. And I agree, you can't just ask the kids about a program that they're not really familiar with,
And I also think it's up to the board and the community to determine what a lot of
right. The priorities are absolutely.
I mean, it's up to the board to say, you know what, based upon and certainly the leadership of the school, they are district priorities as opposed to building priorities, but they are district priorities, and so it involves considering our high school students and considering. And I think we're getting there, and I think it's a wonderful process. That my question was really about how we're going about thinking about these things, and so that we can say, this is how we're going about deciding this, and debating or discussing what it is, as opposed to believe me, I've been in enough meetings with academics where they say, what a priority is. Whatever I'm drinking on Wednesday afternoon, that's my priority. Their little fiefdom, And the way that we get out of fiefdom thinking or, personal obsession thinking is to think about, well, what's our common pursuit here? Common pursuits are determined by common questions, common goals, and that brings everybody together so that we formulate these things.
At the risk of repeating myself.
But that's up, I just sort of want to know what that is.
A lot of the last time we were around this, a lot of discussion was we want to get to here. This is where we want to go to. It's hard to understand getting to there without knowing where we are and where we're starting from. And that was missing, at least in substantial measure, was missing from a lot of that discussion. Or when the questions were asked, where are we starting from? It wasn't clear that the priority setting anticipated that question. But I flog a dead horse. Sorry.
Yeah. But no, it's good to talk about. You ready to close it up?
Yeah. Any other board member comment? If not.
Oh, a quick thing.
Yeah.
No, Laura, how are we doing on the snow days?
Snow days.
Have we used our budget?
We didn't use that many, did we?
My kids said 2, 3.
We've used 3. Yeah, that one in
3 out of
November.
11?
I usually have a
11?
good touch. I couldn't, I was off on
one in
Monday.
November.
I thought you were calling it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
felt like I lost my touch.
Laura, is it 11 we put in? Do I
Six.
am I remember? We only put in 6?
Yeah,
Yes,
last
I
year
wanted
was-
11. See?
The last year was only 3, I think.
Yeah.
This year was 6.
Yeah, it's always trying to figure out what Mother Nature's up to.
Thank you.
The Board of Education of Garrison Union Free School District adjourns its March 6,
So moved.
2019 board meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions, nays. Thank you all very much.
Make sure we all
I don't
sign
have
off
to
on
sign.
this, right.
Coach?
You have to sign out of board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
No, Simon.